My name's Chris Harding, and I've been looking forward to sharing with you some ideas about how to unlock momentum in your business rather than just more of the same. What I mean by that is the potential to grow faster, to have better team engagement, to improve performance, to unlock growth like you've never seen before. But I imagine, perhaps like me, as you look around the world, everything seems rather uncertain. Whether we're talking about economics, politics, education, and it's not just COVID. These changes have been going on for a while. And what I really want to share with you today is a way of thinking about your business, a way of seeing what it is you're doing and what you're building that will help you to put the pieces together, perhaps in a different way, certainly a more powerful way that will unlock its true potential. Let's get straight onto it then. It's quite a big title, I guess, The Business Builder's Guide to Creating Impact and Momentum. And it's really trying to encapsulate a couple of ideas. Firstly, building and creating something rather than just going to work. The idea of building something that has an impact in the world and makes a difference in the world, but not just in the world, but for you and for your life. And then finally, this idea of momentum, which is the idea of how do you do that in a way that is energizing and feels like it's going somewhere. So let's get straight into this then. So the harsh reality about business and success today is that 80% of companies get stuck and fail. Now we all know the statistic that that's true about, the first 5 years, 80% never get beyond that. But actually, it's much more serious than that. If you look at the level of progress in any business, most businesses are getting stuck and not getting to the next level. And here's a challenging thought for us. If that was the kind of success we were getting in our schools with our education system, we'd be horrified. And yet, when it comes to business, the work that we give most of our waking life and energy to, we'll find all sorts of reasons to why that's just the way it is. And if you take that thought one step even further, for those kids that are coming out of school and university and coming into the workplace, imagine coming into a workplace where you've been living the last 12 years of your life having to get A-star grades, and you're going into a company where 80% of them are not actually going anywhere. 70% of households in this country depend on the success of SMEs for their livelihood. So this stuff really matters. And we need to figure out a way to make it work better. Because for the last, 20, 30 years, the growth has been terrible, not very good at all. And we're part of a system that needs a rethink. So let's see what we're going to do about that. Because it's crazy that 80% of companies are working harder just to get more of the same, while a few are managing to work with fundamentally the same pieces of the puzzle, and yet they're able to create impact and momentum. And this is a brilliant little video that you can find on YouTube, where this chappie starts with a domino that is 5 millimeters high, and within 12 dominoes he's able to knock over a domino that is weighs 100 pounds, it's over a meter tall. Now you might say, what the heck has that got to do with business? But this is the question that sort of came to me. What if you could get that kind of momentum in your business? And what are the principles here? Well, one of the principles is that every domino, when you stand it up, has enough latent energy within it to knock over another domino 1.5 times its size. So the idea here is that if you build the things in the right order, with a bit more attention to the detail, what if you could get that kind of momentum in your business? So the question becomes then, so what is it that makes the difference between those two different kinds of dominoes? What is it that holds us back from unlocking the potential that some people seem to have so easily? Because there's all sorts of books you can find on any single challenge that might be out there, whether it's marketing or leadership or strategy or positioning or efficiency. The list is almost endless. In fact, if you think about it, we're notionally, on paper, the most educated generations that have ever lived. Access to information is instant and free. Technology is dirt cheap. Ideas are just a few clicks away. So is opportunity. And yet, as I showed, 80% of companies are not getting momentum. They're just getting more of the same. And if you look around the world, I don't know whether you're paying attention to this stuff, but it's getting even more chaotic, more troubling. The digital disruption, the challenge of artificial intelligence, people talking about the end of capitalism as we know it. And when you really break it down, we all get 36,000 days to build something with our life. And what do you do when we seem to be alive at times of massive disruption that is sort of lumped together with this idea of being VUCA times? Volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. It's not even as if we know what the future is like, and it's definitely not just more of the same with better tech. In fact, some people are really challenging whether or not this is time for a reset, a reboot of our systems. Is capitalism as we know it still working? Is the economic system still working? You got books by people like Mervyn King, the former Bank England governor, who's saying, listen, the end of endless productivity in the name of capitalism is just no longer sustainable. But the book that got me started on this journey of trying to help SME businesses was The E-Myth. And it's trying to answer the question, why do most small businesses not work and what to do about it? This 80-20 problem. What's really holding people back? And I've been working with business owners for about 12 years now, probably more than 100 business owners and their teams. And I have noticed 7 challenges, 7 insights, if you like, that if we can deal with them, they have the power to unlock our infinite potential. And I'm just going to touch on a couple of them today, most of them quite quickly, but the one I want to pay attention to is the 5 parts vision, the creative building blocks as to how to put a company together. But let me start with this one, which is number 3. And the idea of momentum goes something like this. The level of momentum and impact you can create in the world is determined by the quality of the alignment of all the pieces that you're working with, right? If the pieces are not aligned, all you have is cogs in a box rather than a Swiss watch. So imagine how do you make all the pieces work coherently in order to generate energy and power and a way of getting where you want to go. But there's a challenge before the alignment challenge, which is, do you even know what all the pieces are? It's very easy to try and build some with half the pieces because it seems efficient, but if you've only got half the pieces, you can't build the whole thing. And so clarity about all the pieces that are in play really matters, especially when you think that one of the pieces that's in play is you. And there are many things about being a human being that if we don't understand them, they can hold us back. And the piece that comes before that then is this idea of what is the quality of our vision of what's possible for our lives and for our business. Because if we're not even switched on to what do we think is possible, what would that look like, we're not even going to pay attention to all the pieces that are in play that we're going to need to make that happen. And we're definitely not going to get the alignment. And that's when we're not going to get the impact. We're just going to get more of the same every year. The challenge at number 2 is that we're living in these strange times between 2 worlds. And this graph here was created by a friend of mine, Eddie Obeng, in his TED Talk, which you can go and find, called The World After Midnight. And the simple idea here is that the world has changed. But the problem is it happened at midnight about 20 years ago when half of us were asleep. And we didn't notice the fact that the pace of learning has been overtaken by the pace of change. So if you think of the left-hand side as the old industrial paradigm, where if you were a lawyer and you kept ahead of what you needed to know, then you were valuable in the marketplace, and as long as you kept learning ahead of the pace of change, then you would still be able to make things work. But it's very much a Newtonian reality, right? Cause and effect, linear, sequential, deterministic. It's what Simon Sinek is, talking about now as the finite game of the game where someone has to win. We're competing for finite resources. How do we make that work? Whereas the right-hand side is the idea that the pace of change has radically outstripped the pace of learning, which means it's become a lot more complex, this whole VUCA environment. And it's going to require a very different way of thinking about it if we want to actually be successful in this world. Because what we're now looking at is rather more the quantum reality rather than the Newtonian. It's not predictable. It's interconnected, it's complex, it's an ecosystem. But the good news is that the whole idea of this infinite game is that the true nature of reality is that it has emergent properties. That 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 2 like it did in the old world. But if you have 1 plus 1, let's say you have eggs and flour and sugar, you make a cake. A cake is not the sum of the parts. It's something much more interesting and much more useful. So to some degree, we have to get our heads around the fact that we're not living in the world that we were all educated in. That we were trained for a left-hand world and we're living in a right-hand world. And yeah, we need to think differently. As Albert Einstein said, the problem is the level of awareness and the quality of the thinking that got us this far, or as he actually said, created the problems we're now facing, is not good enough, because the future is not just about more of the same with better tech. So here's the challenge then. We're still asking the wrong questions. Because most people are asking the question, what do I have to do to get more? It's almost a old paradigm question. What do I have to do to get more sales, to get more profits, to get more out of my people? Why do I want to do that? So that I can be successful, rich, happy, famous, whatever it is. But this paradigm, this way of thinking about it, what do I have to do to get, and then I will be, is a problem. Because the list is endless. You know, when I'm sitting in a workshop with business owners and their teams, and I say, right, so here's a list of, I don't know, 20, 30 things. Which is the one thing here that's going to make all the difference? What's the one thing I can do to get my business to where I want it to be? Is it leadership? Is it culture? Is it strategy? Is it planning? And as many people are in the room, if you ask them the question, which is the one thing that makes the biggest difference, you'll get that as many answers as there are people. Right? In fact, if you Google, how do I get more sales? I think how do I get more sales will give you 3.5 billion pages in less than a second. This one, how do I get more out of my staff, will give you 682 million pages in less than a second. I mean, what are you going to do with that? The thing is, we don't need more information. We need more clarity. Because this is more than just a question. It's a mindset. And it's the when-then mindset, because that's the world we were educated in. You know, when I get my degree, then I'll be able to get my job, then I'll be able to get my house, my car, my promotion, and all the other things. This when-then mindset is not good enough for creating things. So here's what I learned from my 12 years of taking this puzzle apart. Perspective may as well be everything. In other words, how clearly we see the whole thing is the one thing that makes the difference. Because when you go back to that slide of, is it planning, is it strategy, is it culture, it's all of it. All of it matters. All of it makes a difference. So if you want to build something that's going to get momentum, which pieces do you want to leave out? Because whatever you leave out is going to slow you down, is going to hold you back. Because the one thing is the whole thing. And it's not a brain thing. I don't know if you've noticed this picture on the right-hand side here. But it's not actually moving. You see, your brain is interpreting it as moving, but it's not moving. And the thing that's holding us back is not a brain thing. It's a mind thing. It's our level of knowing about what's really going on and the true nature of the dynamics in play. And here's the good news. That has nothing to do with intellect, nothing to do with the past. It's everything to do with a choice as to about whether or not you're curious enough to find out and to figure out and to understand what's really going on. Because to create something different, you must first be able to imagine something different. And I don't know what you think of when you imagine your company, when you visualize what it is you're building. I've spoken to a lot of people, and a lot of people don't know how to imagine what they're building. They can talk about a product ladder, and they can talk about a sales funnel, and they can talk about an organizational chart, and they can talk about a business model canvas or a metaphor or a target, but that's not the same as imagining what it is you're building, right? And there was this study done in America at the Center for Creative Leadership some years ago. You can still get it online. And it basically says this. One of our challenges is, if you come back to that left-hand world that we've been living in, is all we needed was, what do they call it, horizontal learning, i.e. the world isn't fundamentally changing, we're just adding a new tech here and there. So what do I need to know now? What's the new hack? What's the new information? How do I add the new skill? As if it's a linear progression. But it's not that anymore. We're we're reimagining a brand new world, and therefore here's the big challenge for us. We've forgotten how to think conceptually, and if you can't think conceptually, you can't think strategically. Now, I'm not saying you can't work things out rationally by saying, well, if I'm at A and I want to get to B, what are the steps from A to B? That's not strategically, that's just logically. Strategically is, what are all the pieces in play and how do I fit them together to work coherently, to create alignment, to actually build the thing I want to build? So let me share with you these 5 building blocks of the puzzle that you're actually working on. On the top left, you will recognize this is the Simon Sinek golden circles. This is the customer challenge, right? And the question is, why do so many businesses struggle? Well, one of the reasons is because they're asking the wrong questions at this place. They're asking, what do I know how to do? How do I make money from doing that? Why isn't it working? Rather than asking, why does this business exist? Who does it exist for? What problem does it solve? And what is it about the way we do it that's better than anybody else? You see, starting with why, there has to be 2 whys. There has to be the why that is relevant to you. Why are you doing this? But then your company has to have its own why. Your company has to stand for something, to make a promise to its customers. Why does this business exist? What problem does it solve? Who do we solve that problem for? And how do we do it better than anybody else? The second challenge then is that there is a way to do everything else. And so if you haven't designed the way that you're going to do it, then it's probably not going to work as well as you wanted it to. So for example, you don't get there by default just because you've got a sales guy and a marketing guy. You have to design the customer journey. And so what is the customer journey from inquiry to raving fan in your organization? How does it work? How does business management work in your organization? How do you make sense of the numbers to tell you whether or not your progress that you're trying to make with the vision that you have is actually going anywhere? How do you do recruitment? What's your system for making sure that you're hiring the right people, nurturing them in the best way possible, developing them, retaining them, inspiring them to get involved in this thing? There's a way to do everything, and if you're not thinking through how to do that, then you're just getting what you get by default rather than by design. The third challenge is that you need a committed team. You see, if you can articulate the vision and you can articulate the customer promise and you can design the customer journey and you can help the team to understand how they contribute to the customer journey, then that makes all the difference. The trouble is that's not the way we've typically done it in the old world. We've typically done it by saying, right, I need an HR guy, a sales guy, a marketing guy, a finance guy. And so they need to have a certain level of experience and skills, and they need to do certain things. I'll write down the skills on a CV. We'll write down the activity that they need to be able to fulfill on a job description. And if we put some KPIs in the middle to manage these cogs in a box, then we should get what we need, right? If you've got a marketing guy and you've got a sales guy and they all know how to do what they know how to do, then it should work, right? But no, it doesn't, because every single one of those people comes with their own mental model as to what's going on here. And if they're coming at this with the idea of, well, I'm the marketing guy and I'm nothing to do with the sales guy, I'm nothing to do with the finance guy, they're all just making it up as they go along. How do you get them to understand that they're here to help you deliver on the customer promise? You can't do that if you haven't articulated it. The fourth challenge is the financial one. You see, every business exists and it has to make a profit if it's going to keep existing. And you make a profit if you have the right value proposition at the right price, but every business is constrained by cash and or time. What that means is you have to invest cash and time to generate more customers. You have to invest cash and time to grow your capacity and to grow your capability with your people. And the challenge for most businesses is they've never modeled this. You need to financially model the relationship between how many customers you can service, what profits that will generate, what's the capacity you need to have, what's the capability you need to develop, what is the relationship between all these dynamics. And if I can model that, then I can figure out how to grow it. I can figure out in which order to build the pieces of it. For example, if every salesperson can generate 10 customers and every delivery guy can handle 5 customers, I need 2 delivery guys. I'm sure you get the idea. We don't have time to go into the detail, but that's the basic principle of it. You need to master how the numbers work. You see, many business owners are only paying attention to the top left. How do I get more sales? As if I'm just getting more sales, I can ignore everything else. It'll somehow work its way out, but it doesn't, and you get stuck because sales and marketing is not enough. Customer experience is not enough. But it's the thing that's bottom left that ultimately makes the difference here. Because everything else on that 4 building blocks is a manifestation of what's going on bottom left here, because that's you, the entrepreneur. You are the engineer of the product, the vision, the design quality, the values, the direction, the strategy, the planning, the leadership, the communication, the culture. You are the architect. If it's not happening in your business, it's because it's not happening in you. Everything else is a manifestation of what's going on in you or what you allow to go on. And this is the challenge here, because this is the toughest gig on the planet. See, here's the thing about these 5 building blocks. They're not 5 separate things. You know, in the corporate world, you have a sales and marketing department, you have a technology department, you have a finance department, you have an HR department. As long as they take care of all the bits, then it should work. But it's not 5 separate things. It's one thing. You could say that your business is a customer promise. You could say that your business is an organization. You could say that your company is a culture. You could say that your business is really just a manifestation of a vision and a purpose. But it's all of it. And you need to think differently if you're going to make it work. So here's the complete model that I think makes a difference if you're stuck in any way in your business, wondering how to get to the next level. This is a model that will help you to think through what is missing, what is misaligned, what do I need to pay attention to. Very often when people come to me and they say, well, I'm not making enough money, I can't get enough sales, I can't find the right people. That's not the place to start. Those are the symptoms, because sales, profits, and team engagement are all results, and they're all results of the things that you've put in place. So you need to put them in place well. Now that 5 building block model breaks down into about 29 different pieces. Every single one of them matters. Any one of these is missing, then you're weakening your potential to get momentum in your business. So here's my advice to you. Stop trying to fix what you have. Imagine what could be. Imagine what pieces you need to make that a reality, and begin to evolve from where you are to where you want to be, one piece at a time. Thank you for listening.